morning. As you could tell from the intro, the day has finally arrived. Pemmican. We're finally getting to the pemmican video. So first I have to go and water the animals. My watering method for right now, because we have absolutely no power, I think it's done. We have no power out in the shed area at all. So I am taking very warm 5-gallon buckets of water out, and I am watering the animals that way. And so far, seems to be working really nicely. I'm gonna go do that, and then we will get to the pemmican in just a little bit. Alrighty guys, so fun fact, I have been attempting to record this video for about a month. Doesn't seem to matter what I plan, something has gone in the way, it's gone wrong. So I'm sorry. This has been, I think it's been almost 2 weeks that I have been actively recording this. Finally, I've gotten down to the part where I get to show you the pemmican. I ended up getting sick. My kids were sick. It was insane. And I'm finally slowly getting on the mend. I was going to show you cutting the pemmican and everything, and then I got so sick that I wasn't able to do that. So here's the pemmican. It has already been cut up. I will show you a little bit of the texture. So pemmican originated with the Native Americans. They would dehydrate meat, add berries or fruit or honey to it, and then cover it with fat, a fat of the rendered fat from whatever animal. And then they would save this for a really, really long time. They're the ones that kind of invented it. I think it was like in 1776 that it was first almost commercially sold or brought to the forefront as, hey, this is a food that we should consider making. This is one version of pemmican. The carnivore bar is basically just pemmican. That's exactly what it is. They've taken it to the next level. They have taken it to the grass-fed, grass-finished meat with the tallow, and then no salt, or honey. Totally up to you. They are completely carnivore. This would not be considered carnivore. This would be considered keto. You can leave off the berries. You can add other berries. You can even add nuts as long as you're going to consume it within about a year, because the oils in the nuts can make it go bad. You don't have to do the honey. You don't have to do the berries. You can just do meat and fat. So this is my third batch of pemmican that I have made. This one Richard actually really likes. So this is the ground beef that I dried out in the oven. The basis of pemmican is always going to be a dried, dehydrated meat. It can be anything, literally anything. You could do it from rabbit to rhinoceros and probably anything in between and have absolutely no issues. A couple of tips. The leaner the meat, the drier you can get it. The drier you can get it, the better it's going to be and the longer it will be preserved. With that being said, I showed you guys how to do it in the oven so that you didn't have to have a dehydrator. You don't have to have any other method of drying out your meat. You can use something that most people have, an oven. Now, every different way that you dehydrate it is going to give you a different texture. If you use a leaner meat versus something that has more fat in it, it's going to give you a different texture. Then the fat that I used was actually pork fat. I went to my butcher and I said, hey, do you have beef tallow? And they said, nope. And I said, do you have marrow bones? And they said, nope. And I said, what do you got? And they said, well, we've got some pork fat. And I said, I'll take it. So that is what I showed cutting up. I threw it into my crock pot. I put it on low. What you want to look for with the fat is that you want to let it bubble on low until there's no more bubbles. Once those bubbles are gone, it means that all of the water, all of the moisture has been drawn out of the little particles. What's really, really, really cool is that those little bitty bits that you have left over, you can actually throw them into the oven or into an air fryer and you can crisp them up. You can add some seasoning on top of them and then heat them up, and they are like crack candy. I mean, they are incredible. They're so good. So don't throw those little guys away. You're going to want to turn those into some kind of a little fat bomb and snack on those. But any kind of fat works. Duck fat would be phenomenal. Any kind of, I wouldn't use venison fat because that stuff is pretty nasty. So any fat is going to work as well, as long as it tastes good. I don't care for the flavor of the pork fat. So I made this, I tried this. The little bits in here are really, really hard and crispy. I'm missing 3 molars on the bottom of my jaw. So for me, the really crispy bits are really hard to handle. So he loves this one. He loves the flavor of the pork fat. He likes the texture. Then of course, he loves the added sweetness of the berries and the honey. Again, you can absolutely leave those out. So the basis for your pemmican is always going to be meat and fat. That is it. I've never tried it with butter. I would assume you probably could use it with butter, but I'm going more for the traditional way of making pemmican. Again, coconut oil, you might be able to do it. I don't know, but I don't have any intention of doing that. I really want to stick to the animal products as much as possible and the unadulterated animal products. So it's not the butter that's been churned and all of that. I'm just going to go with the rendered, pour it on top, keep it simple. But that is how you make pemmican. Again, any way that you dehydrate your meat, you could smoke it, you can, which is how the Native Americans traditionally did it, is they would lay it out in the sun. They would put it over fires and it would dehydrate very slowly. What you're looking for with your meat is when you take it between your fingers and you lay it across right here, you want to crunch it. And when it breaks up here at the top, you almost want to see like a powder shoot out of the top of it because it's so dry. The drier, the better. Now, this stuff, it did not want to finish drying out. Part of that is because I didn't pour off the fat. So that is a tip if you're going to use ground beef in the oven, just like I did. In the first hour or so, you're going to want to take your pan and you're going to want to pour off the fat over and over and over again to get it as dry as possible. Absolutely save that fat. Put it through a strainer, collect it into a big Pyrex bowl, which actually is back over here on top of my cinder. That's bacon grease right there. One of the ladies in my Mighty Network, one of the moderators, she's actually the one that gave me this recipe with the ground beef in the oven. And then she uses bacon grease drippings for hers. So absolutely any kind of fat on top of this is going to be good. You can use a blender to pulverize your meat. You can use a food processor to pulverize your meat, whatever you want to do. If you choose to put berries in here, they need to be just as dry as the meat. Extremely dry. Freeze-dried berries or very, very dehydrated ones work out really well. I keep mine in the fridge just because I like that it's more solidified, it's harder, it stays together really nicely, and it's not melting and kind of tacky and soft. But they don't have to be refrigerated. If you do it right and you get enough of the moisture out and enough of the fat around it so that it's protecting it, then you're not going to have any problems with that. So this is pemmican. You have to try it 100 different times. You could probably do it 100 different ways before you found your perfect combination. Richard likes the ground beef and the pork fat with the berries and the honey. I really prefer my meat to be the leaner. I like the tenderloin because it just tastes totally different. So I prefer the tenderloin, and then I love beef tallow, but even better, I like the bone marrow remnants. So I got a whole bunch of bone marrow bones from my butcher. They were $1 a bone. I got a whole bunch of those. I roasted them in the oven. I'll stick that up above in the cards in case you want to learn how to do that. I cooked it even longer. So once the bones are done in the oven, I pulled them out. I got the marrow out of the center of it and I put it in a pan on top of the stove to continue the rendering process. By the time I was done, I had very little bone marrow remnants left inside and tons of gorgeous rendered fat. Let me go grab those so you can see what they look like. Okay, this is the fat that I rendered out of the bone marrow. It's really, really white and it's actually pretty hard. Then this is the pork fat that I used to make these pemmican bars. It's actually a lot softer. It is pretty light. It's not quite as white as this one is. I know it's probably really hard to see, but this is actually a softer, not quite as firm texture to it, whereas this stuff is a lot harder. I prefer this. Richard prefers this. So I can't tell you which one is going to be your favorite. You could really enjoy the bacon grease. You can also add any kind of seasoning that you would like. Instead of doing a sweet pemmican, you could do a savory pemmican. So you could do Redmond seasoned salt. You could do Italian seasoning. There's so many different options that you could try out to see how it works for you. But the key is dehydrated, as dry as possible, your meat and anything else that's going to go into this. Then you're going to render down your fat, pour it on top, simply refrigerate it. It's not hard, but it is definitely a labor of love. It does take a while. For me, it was, okay, I'm gonna use the fat that I have that I've saved out in the garage. Oh, it went bad because it was stored improperly. Yeah, long story, very long story. So then I had to go find some fat. Well, then my butcher's all out of fat. And then I found the pork fat. And so I started to render that down, and then I got ridiculously sick. It was horrid. So I'm slowly on the mend. I actually ended up having to take antibiotics because I got so sick. My body was not able to fend anything off anymore. I had a double ear infection, a sinus infection. It moved into my chest and also into both of my eyes. I'm slowly recovering from that, still on the antibiotics, doing everything that I can to try to support my system while on the antibiotics, because we all know how much fun that is. But I couldn't wait another day. I had to get this video out to you guys. I told Richard, I said, do not eat it all. I need some for the video. So please enjoy your pemmican, but don't eat it all. So this is what's left of his pemmican. I hope that you guys like this. Please try it out. Let me know what other methods you use. Do you use the oven? Do you use the dehydrator? Have you tried any other ways of dehydrating your meat? What other ways do you think would work? And then what other fats could you suggest? Duck, pork, beef. There's so many other things that I'm sure I'm not even thinking about. So please leave those comments down below. Let's help one another with the best way to make our pemmican, our homemade pemmican. Any recipes, anything that you can think of or that you want to try, leave it down below so we can encourage one another. This is kind of the ultimate emergency food, in my opinion. I think that us low carbers need to be a little bit more intentional about our emergency preparations. I'm actually going to talk about that in my very next video, so be on the lookout for that. I hope that this encourages you to try pemmican, and I know it sounds totally weird, but let me tell you, I'm kind of addicted to it now. I hope you guys like it as much as I do. Please like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already, and I will see you guys on the way. Praise the Lord. Okay.